Hello everyone, welcome to Bootcamp. Today's session we'll be starting to work on our Jamstack classes. So this would be the first installment, and we'll be building a site with Gatsby and TypeScript today. So we'll start with a step, and then we'll be alternating between me, Daniyal, and Zeeshan throughout the day today. Um, so let's get started. I think Daniyal will be joining us shortly, and Zeeshan is already here with me. So let's see. I'll share my screen with you guys. Okay, and then what we can do repository as a team. So we might create a new one, and let's just call this, what is this? I'll call it, yeah, it's Jamstack serverless. So let's just call it tech serverless. I think that might be the yeah.
Hello, how are you doing?
I guess your voice is
Yeah,
breaking. I thought it was my end, but
I think it's on your end, Zishan. Maybe if you mute your mic, it might be okay. I think hopefully it's better now. Okay, so here we go. We're creating a repo. It's a public one, and we're initializing it. So just add everything here. What am I missing?
Adil, your voice is coming as a very shrill.
Sorry,
It's very shrill.
my screen is still.
I think yes, and it is your screen is also. I think you will have to restart. In the meanwhile, let me go over the theory with the students, and you join.
Okay, let me restart my system. Okay.
Okay. Say, the point I'm trying to say is, let's get started while Adil joins us. The thing is, you have to understand. Up to now, we have been using Create React apps. Create React app, as Ishant told you the last time, is basically client-side rendering. Now what we want to do is, we are going to use Gatsby to do both client-side rendering as well as server-side generation. In Gatsby, you can do both those things. That is, you can do, most of the people think of Gatsby as only a tool to do server-side generation, which is not correct. Using Gatsby, you can do both. What you cannot do using Gatsby is server-side rendering. That's the only thing. But server-side rendering, uh, even the biggest proponent of it, Next.js, basically Nest came into being because of server-side rendering. But now they have also, with the latest versions, moving towards server-side generation. So therefore, what we have to learn is now on each and everything, every functionality you add, you will have to ask yourself a simple thing. Whether you are doing in Gatsby, that's why it becomes a little complicated for a new person. It's not complicated. Once you understand the logic, it is very easy and very powerful. But for a new person, for a layman who is coming from React, Create React app, he gets confused because he doesn't understand both these topics, both these two different ways of doing things. So therefore, for example, if you create a page, you will have to think about in Gatsby whether it is server side generation or It's a client-side rendering. That's the first question you should ask. Now, conceptually think about it. If you have a lot of data, you have a catalog of products which you want to sell on the internet. Let's say you have 500 products. If you have 500 products, what we want is to have a list of all the products. And when you click on the list, just like in Amazon, it goes to the product page and creates it. When you go to the product page, what we want is this page to be server-side generated. It should already have a HTML, a CSS, JavaScript, all there so that SEO can see it and you can deploy. It's just no question of SEO. In Jamstack, the other advantage is you can deploy it on a CDN and it very fast. Zeeshan, could you revise this whole concept a little bit?
Basically, what we need to understand is when we are working on a product in a medium or large scale product, we need to understand that what we really want. The problem while working on the applications, we need to understand that do we really need a client side rendering? Do we really need a page to rebuild each time or not? Because sometimes our application have few pages that are static. They have content, but that content must be set up first time when we build the application or create the application, or whenever the content change for the first time. So one thing we need to understand that either our page needs to be keep changing, or it will be a static once data it's fetch the data. So it helps you to fetch to display the pages. It is increase the speed if your page is static and it's directly resides on the CDN. This another thing is when you are working on an application which has dynamic content, and that dynamic content can keep changing and you need to update that content. But let's say, as Sazia has mentioned, in case of an application for e-commerce application, you have 500 or 1000 products. So what you can do is you can generate static pages. You can definitely you will not be creating application with 1000 HTML pages. You will not be creating pages directly by your own. You need something that generates those pages and resides on a static server so that you can access it. So what Gatsby can do is you create an application where if you have a 500 products, so what Gatsby will do, it will generate these 500 pages with the static content. It will fetch the content at the build time from the database wherever you want, and then this and whenever you are requesting for that particular page, that page will be static. Why? Because it's already been generated, so it will be a fast to reach to the customer. Second, it will have an SEO, so it's easy for the crawler and browser, and wherever application requires your page to be rendered, so it's fast for that. That's two things that Gatsby, and there are a lot of other things which Gatsby helps us.
The only part which gets a little bit confusing, the thing is, let's assume that you have 50,000 products.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a little confusing which one to use. We'll talk about it later on. Adil is back. Adil, can you speak? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, good. All right, so let's pick up again. What we'll do is come to GitHub and we'll create a new repository called Jam Pack Serverless, and we can initialize it. What's this saying? It's fine, I guess. Okay, and then here, maybe I can add a couple of my options here. Zeeshan Hanif. I'll add Daniyal. And add Mr. Hira Khan. Okay, now we have a team repository here. And then let's just go to GitHub, desktop. And add.
Adil, we are still having the same problem.
Same problem?
Yes,
Why?
your voice is breaking. I think we will have to give the development to Zeeshan. Zeeshan?
Is on there? I've been having internet issues today.
Yes, I'm here.
Zeeshan, I think we'll have to go with you to set up Gatsby and
Okay. Okay, so just a moment, let me share my screen and okay, so what I'm going to do is the first step which Sarja has mentioned in his repository, I'll go with that as a starting point for step 0. This step has all these information what you need to do. So what I did is I've already created a repo with the name Gatsby demo 1. But I'll show you the installation steps, how you need to, because at the very first time you need to set up your application or your server. So let's just go to not install mode. So whenever you are setting up your Gatsby the very first time, what you need to do is you need to install Gatsby on your machine. You definitely need to have Node.js previously. So as we have learned React and all these stuffs previously, so you definitely have Node on your machine. What you can do is with the as a very first step, you need to install Node and everything. And then what you need to do is you need to install Gatsby. I just wanted to show you inside the article, otherwise we can go with directly. Yes. For the very first time, you need to install Gatsby globally. npm install -g gatsby-cli. So I have already installed it. You need to install it in your system at the global level. Then you can see the help. You have multiple options to see. We'll see later on this. Then what you can do is you have a 2 option. Either create a Gatsby. You can run a command Gatsby new hello world only. Gatsby new hello world. What it will do is it will create a new Gatsby project with default template structure, default boilerplate with Gatsby provide, and it has multiple files and content. We don't need it because initially, as we are creating project for the very first time, so we'll get confused with the structure that project provides. So what we can do, we have a option to pick the hello world starting repo. So what I did already is, that's how you can just
What I did was, Zeeshan, I was using a minimal Gatsby template, because then you will not be confused with the extra things.
yeah, I'll copy from your repo to
Mhm.
display. Okay, so what you can do is, once you install the Gatsby, you say Gatsby new hello world. That once you hit that command, it will generate a project, complete boilerplate and boiler structure, which I just said that it will confuse you. So what we can do is, instead of is someone saying something, or
No, no, no. It's somebody disturbance on the net. Adil, please mute yourself.
okay,
Mhm.
okay. So what we need to do is, we need to Gatsby new hello world, and then we have starter. So you can do two type of starters. You can do this GitHub URL. You can use GitHub Gatsby hello world starter. So it will have one or two file additional, or as Sarzia has mentioned in his repository, Gatsby new and the Gatsby starter minimal. So whatever you want to use, copy that and paste it over here. So once you hit that, it will create a repository, a basic structure which we can use. I'll show you later, but let me just hit that so that you guys can understand. I'm naming it demo 4. But as I mentioned that I have already created the project structure, so I'll go with that. So here we have the basic structure, and that structure, initially we have Gatsby config, which is empty, it has nothing, and static folder, it has just a favicon, and src folder, it has a one folder pages, and inside there is one folder index.js. Now what we need to understand is, previously when React or Angular start taking the world of web, there was a concept that whenever you need to create a page, a complete page, you create a folder container and use that component inside it. If you are using a component, all you guys know React. So if you are creating a component which will be used inside a page, then you create a folder named component and use those component over here. So the same concept is being used by Gatsby in nest.js. They say if you are creating a pages, you need to have a pages, so you will create a folder page, and inside that folder you will have your file in index.js. So you can create that file as a typescript file, as well as normal js file, the way you want to use it. So what you need to understand is, in this basic structure, you will have a source folder. In that source folder, you will have a folder named pages. That's a mandatory, because your Gatsby will generate static HTML pages based on that folder. If you have a 4 files in this folder, that means you have a 4 pages in your application. At this moment, I'm not doing anything else. I'll just run this application. So what we need to do is,
We also need to set up a TypeScript recipe.
uh, it was saying, I was heard at I was reading somewhere that you don't need now, it's built in into it. So I'll just run it and it will convert
Okay.
it. So if we face problems, so I'll add it.
Okay.
Okay, so inside that. So we have installed, we have created the Gatsby, then we saw the project, and now Gatsby develop.
Now everybody has to understand this Gatsby develop is running on your machine using Node.js. It has
Yes.
nothing to do with the client. It will generate the client. That is why it is called server-side generation. This Gatsby will take this data tool, which is a Node.js tool, will Gatsby CLI, and will take this data and generate HTML pages.
Yeah. So basically, the Gatsby develop is it has a two-step responsibility. One is it will generate the HTML pages for you, because the way we discussed the Gatsby, the reason we are working on Gatsby, that it generates you the static HTML pages so that you can render them directly instead of client-side rendering. So it generates it, and second, it create a server so that you can serve files from it. So it will create a server as well, so you can use those files, and it will open up, you can open up in localhost. So once it is done building, we can see our application in localhost 8000 or whatever the port it provides. And you need to see that it has generated a folder named public. When we have created the project, there was no folder name public. It has generated the folder name public. It has static file, it has HTML file, index.html, and there will be more files once the building is done, the process. Okay, now we have project ready at localhost 8000. So let me pick that, and okay, so now we have hello world. As simple, we have not done anything uh, for the after creating a project. We have just run the project. It's index.tsx. It is default, as we have created all the component in React. We have done a lot of components in React. The difference is there is no app.js where we will be adding the component, and then at this moment we are not talking about the routing, but we have just created the index.js, and that index.js will become your main page. So as you can see, and in public, you can see there is a page data. We'll discuss these details later, but it generates the JSON files, and there are a lot of JSON and JavaScript functions in those files. That's what it generates, the Gatsby process. So once you create a repo and you run the Gatsby develop, it whatever component or pages you have, this process of Gatsby develop, it generates the static pages content or JSON or JavaScript, and then it runs a server where you can access your application. So it's running over here, and we have very simple JavaScript, React component. There's nothing else. Now, what we can do is, I want two pages. I want one more page. There is a one page which is index, and it is serving on /route/add1000. So what I can do is I can add another page which will be /home or /about, whatever I want. So as you all remember, for that we had to what we had to do is we had to create the routing in React. In Gatsby, what we just need to do is inside the pages, what I'll do is I'll add new file, and let me say about.tsx. Now here I can name it anything, but if it, meanwhile I have just saved that project, I just saved that file. Behind the scene, Gatsby develop keeps building the process as we have done seen with the create react app. Once if you are running locally and you are working on a project, so it just keep rebuilding and displaying latest changes. So you can see that, and here what I can do is I have a initial page, and now I can type, because at this moment we have not done the routing, so I can type about, and it will show me about page. So we have created two pages, both have some content, and we can work with them this way. Uh, okay, that's it. Anything you want to add, or I should move forward with
Let's add a link.
add a?
Add a link in the next
Okay.
step.
Okay. So for the next step, what we need to do is, as we have created the two pages, one is index and another one is about. So what we need to do is, now we need to link, so that whenever I'm on index page, I need to click on a particular link and I want to move to about page. For that, Gatsby has provided its own component for the linking. So let's go to the index page again, and what I'll do is I'll just, so that we have much clearer view of component, I will add it with this. Now I want to add a link so that I can go to the about page. Link. So it's Gatsby. It's imported from the Gatsby link. So it has a router. Gatsby has a router. You will see later on. But Gatsby provide its own link control, so that you can use that control for the linking, and it actually replaces the a replacement of a tag in our HTML to sketch about. Okay, you can see hello world, and it's a link about. We have just created the link tag and provided the to. So whenever we click on this link, where this link should redirect it us to, where that should be navigated to. So what we can do is to slash about, and that's about whatever message or text we need to display. I want to change line, so that's simple. That's nothing special. Now I'll click on the about, it changes the pages. Quite simple. You don't need to worry about anything. And we have created two pages. We have not have used any routing. And the most important thing is, these two pages are statically built. So once you deploy these pages on any CDN server using the Netlify or the Gatsby Cloud, wherever, there will be static pages. So the time to render on the browser and the bandwidth will be very fast. It will be low cost on the bandwidth, and time to print will be very fast. Now, if there'll be some time when we need to have that component display based on some button click, that it's an A tag. Actually, if you see, it's an A tag. If I want to navigate based on a button click, so it's very simple. What we can do is we can add a button, a normal button. whatever I'm writing in this component is exactly same as we have done with the React. So that will be same. I'll create a component and I'll add that component over here. I'll show you in a moment. But at this moment, it's exactly the React. There is nothing difference. No difference. We have created a button and on click event quite a lot of time. To navigate using the Gatsby process, Gatsby provide with the logic. So Gatsby provide us function named navigate. And here we can pass about. Okay, so let's go back to the page. So we have a it's reloaded and about page. You can move to the about page. So it will work same. The only difference is we can navigate on particular page based on some business logic. If button click with the any other data, so you can choose the pages uh, while checking the business logic. So that's how you create the linking between the two pages. Let's move to the
repository. Just go back to the repository.
yeah. I'm
And
going back.
just to recap what we have covered so far.
Mm-hmm.
We have covered step 0,
Mm-hmm.
where we did a TypeScript hello world. Then
Yes.
we built a component which actually is a page, and we basically linked it. Now, therefore, we have covered step 0 and step 1.
Yes.
What is not present in the repository is how you use the button and navigate, but now you have learned that also.
Yes.
Now, what we are going to do is build a sub-component, which will go in a page.
Yes. So should I move on it?
Of course.
Okay. So I'll be using the same content over here as we have created the two pages over here. Now what we need to do is we are coming from the React, so we know that if we want to create a page, we need to have a multiple component. There will be a lot of things in our page, and all those things should be separated by the components. So about index.js is a page which needs to be displayed as a particular page. About.js is a page which will be displayed as a separate page, and there will be a static pages. Now what we need to do is in index page, I want to have header, or I want to have any other component which will display some information, any kind of information, or anything that we need to display. So we need to compile a page based on different component. So for that, what we need to do is we need to create components that will not be a page, because everything in this page folder will be a separate static page and can be navigated to. So what we
Zeeshan,
need
I
to
would like to add here, some people
yes.
might be confused whether this is a single page web app or not. It is not a single page web app. Zeeshan, can you, I think people are still confused. It's not a single page web app.
Basically, what you need to understand, what is single page app? Single page app is you have a single HTML page and all those components being replaced within that page. So single page app is when you have a client side rendering and everything is done on the client side. All the routing, all the management is done on the client side. It is not single page app. Why? Because all those pages are being compiled and converted into the final shape while the build time. So it is not a single page app, because the routing or the page building or the display, the process of parsing is already being done on the server at the build time. So that's why it's not a single page app. All the pages are separately generated on the build time. And why you are not getting this point is I have already run the Gatsby Develop. Gatsby Develop is a development tool for the developers, so that whenever you change or add a new page, it's built a complete website and it's rendered. So it runs the server. So that's why you are not getting the point. Otherwise, what you are going to do for the production, you will run Gatsby build. It will generate a static page. All things will be in this public folder, and then you will release that or publish that public folder on the production server. It has all the pages already built once you run the build process. So that's why, if as I have mentioned, in public page data, you can see about 404 index. We do not have 404, but the Gatsby create a default 404. So as you can see, it's working with the JSON, so you'll see understand it a bit later. But that's how it's being done. So these pages are already being separately created, and whenever you just hit the URL, it just display that particular page. It does not require the parsing at the client side, and all the routing are already being done.
In a single page web app, what happens is the JavaScript goes from the server to the client, and all this which is being done on the server is done on the client.
Yes.
Go ahead, Zeeshan. Let's build a subcomponent.
Okay, so in SRC, what I'll do is I'll create a folder named components. And here at this moment, let's say I need a component named header. From here. And what I need is the title should be coming from the calling component, wherever the header component is being used. So what we can do is we can access the title from here. At this point, it's the same as we use props. So we are destructuring the props. So it's an header component, and we have created it inside the component. Now Gatsby will not generate a separate page for this component. It's assumed to be used in some other components. Let's go to the index page, and what I'll do is here inside the div, what I'll do is I'll add header, and it needs the title, so I will provide the title over here. Next page. Same goes for the about. So I want to use that title in about header in about page as well. So now we have created a component. There is no difference how we create component in React and with Gatsby. Gatsby is built on React, so you do not have to confuse that there'll be something different. The process, the flow, the workflow has some differences, but it's still a React. So that's you need to understand. Okay, so I need to run the Gatsby develop again. So let's say we have a index page. Let's say we have a Facebook page. While it's running, we have a Facebook page. We have a friend list. We have a activity stream. We have groups. All these things are separate components. So what I'll do is I'll create an index page and I'll add all those components in that. What Gatsby will do is Gatsby will generate a complete static page for index, and all those components will be inside that, and they will be converted at the build time. So you will just see a static page rendering displaying on the client. 8,000. So at this moment you can see index page. It's in a header component. We receive inside this. You can do whatever you want to do with the component. Let's say it's in header, so I want to display it separately. I want to display it in the center. So you can manage anything with your CSS as you want. But what we need to see here is in that index page we have added a component which is inside component folder. In about we have added the header component which is inside the component folder. So we can see that over here. And again, in about page, we also have that header. So we have created a component and used that component in our whole application wherever we want to use that component in our application.
The next step is we are going to have layout component. We are going to use sub-components as layout.
Yes.
What we'll have to do is go to the source file.
Source folder, yes.
Yes. Source folder, and go into components.
And layout.
Yeah. Now take a look at it.
So what you need to understand is layout component is nothing different. It does not have a built-in layout or something. You are creating a component, and what you want is that component can contain or can have multiple childs. So if you want to create any component, just we are naming it a layout, but you can name it any component. That component must have a child tags, child components. Then you need to use that component in a way which we have created over here. As you can see, component children's layout props. We are creating a props so that we understand that a component receives properties, and component also receives if it has a children. So child component, if component has a child component, component will receive in a children property, and then whatever you want to display on a page, and then you need to display those childrens in your particular location. So that's how you need to you will create a layout component. So let me go for that layout component. Let me go in our project, and in components what I'll do is I'll create 6. Now we need children here. And as we are working with the type script, so we need to specify to particular type so that you have those particular types. So type layout props, it's your name, whatever name you want to provide, so that the input should be converted to that particular type, so that you can have the type specific accessibility. So we are creating layout prop children and create now type layout props. What React node is, or any component, any tag is a React node. Like we have in a DOM, we have any HTML element is a node. So that's exactly the same way we have here. React node, and we are typing it. So layout Now, what I need to do is I'm assuming that I have a layout. It must have a header. So at this moment, as we have seen, in index page we have to use header, and in about page, so we need to use header twice. If we have a 10 pages, we need to add that header into those 10 pages again and again. So what we can do is we can create a layout which always have a header, always have a footer, always have a left or right panel, and then all these component will be or the pages or content will be in center. So we are thinking in this direction. So in case of layout, what I'll do is we have a div, and then inside the div what we'll do is we'll say we need to have header over here. At this moment I am not accessing the uh, static properties of header. I'll show you later. At this moment I am providing static value of header by my application. There's no corresponding closing tag. Okay.
It is not headers, it is header.
Oh, yes. Okay. Still.
You have not imported it.
Okay. So at this moment, this component is as simple as we have used previously, except for this and this. If you forget it, all these things are similar to any other things. Now, what we need to do is we are assuming that this layout component will be used at a place where inside that component there will be some other components. For example, in about page, I'm assuming that I'll be using the layout component here. Everything will be inside that layout component. If you see, we are providing tag inside our component. Children is missing. Our layout. What did you see? Property children.
No, I think go back to the layout, Zeeshan.
Just. I have not provided over here children, so what I'll do is I'll create a div here. But it should not be the error. Let's see. That's not the error. Children is missing in type children colon element but required. Okay, so you need to pass the layout props system. No, there is no difference. Okay.
I think what inside layout you should not have the div. Otherwise, it will be one children.
Okay. If we do not have a children inside, layout. No.
Is there a spelling mistake in children?
Yeah.
Aryan. Child, Aryan. ERN.
Okay, so okay, yes, it was a spelling mistake. So that's how TypeScript saves you from the errors at the compile time. So as soon as there was a problem, otherwise while we were displaying page, we need to fix that error because the spelling mistake, because of the spelling mistake. So TypeScript saved me at the compile time. Okay, now in about.js, what I did is inside the layout, inside my particular component, I have added these div tag, and I'll remove the header tag because I don't need it at this moment.
You can also do something. Have a
Yep.
div outside layout and then whatever. Let's see.
Div outside the layout and another div inside the layout.
You don't need another div inside.
Okay. Yes, that's what you're saying.
Because the children, it will then in that case there will be only one child, which will be the div.
I wanted to mention that we can have tags, so I need to display them tag.
Go ahead. Go
Otherwise,
ahead. Go ahead.
there'll be no. You can see we have a layout tag, and inside that we have two div tag. There can be any component. Your custom component can be over here. So basically what this will do is in layout component, when it tries to render the layout component, inside that layout component, it will first render the whatever content inside the layout component. So inside the layout, it has a div, it has a header, and then it has a div, and then it says display children over here. Now I can control the children pass to the component where I need to display them inside my component. So I have displayed, I have mentioned these children over here. So when the layout component will render, it will have a header, it will have a div, and inside the div, whatever children I have provided in the about page will display over here. So let's go to the UI output. Okay, about page. Okay, so now you can see we on home page. We have not done it the home page. We'll do over there as well. When I click on about, it says my application, about div page, second div. So what it does is it helps you out to create a layout of your application of your page. So that layout will application, like in Facebook, we always have a header, we always have a footer. So we'll create a component and we want to display whatever component we have inside that layout. So that's how you create any component, and then we have a children, and inside the these children will be coming from here. Now what I'll do is I'll copy the same, I'll do the same with index page. Now we do not need div as a single parent. Why? Because layout already has a div. You can see we have These component over header, we are about all these things and below. So now this my application header will always will be there whenever whichever page you go. So we have two page, index and about. We have added layout in both of them. So both of them have the layout tag. So layout tag will display the header. So last thing, what I need is instead of my application, I want to have a custom title. Generally, it should be a static title, but just to show you that layout can also receive properties. So what I'll do is I want to pass header title property. At this moment, I'm in index page, so I want to pass the header title property, and it should be index page header. Generally, we are not going to change the header always. In case of Facebook, if we have a header as a Facebook, so it will always remain the Facebook. But just to show you that we can pass property over here. So at this moment, it's giving us an error. Why? Because we have not mentioned it over here. So what I'll do is header title. It will not be a React node, but we'll see. Okay. So header title index.page. I'll be passing from here, and in this case, we'll be receiving header title over here, and I'll display that header title here. Now index page will about page will have error because it also needs that property. Yes. Now you can see we have customized that layout component as well as use it as a common component which can hold multiple components inside it, and we can provide properties, whatever data we want to send in that layout component. So I guess this is the anything else in for specific to the layout, sir?
Just a point. The type, go back to the type in the layout.
Yes.
Should it be React node or should it be string?
Yeah, we can because actually what it does is it creates a node, so we can have a string as well. Works with the string as well, so we can manage, because if we are using a property which is accepting a number, so we must mention it as a number so that it stays the type specific for the number as well. So yeah, we can use the string here.
Now let's go back to the what do you call the repository main, and now we'll look at two styles. Two ways to style it. One is global styles. This is step 4.
Yes.
Let's do global styles. In global styles, what you have to do is, if you go to the go on top.
Just in the
what you have to do is, in global styles, you have to create a file called Gatsby.js.
Yes.
We are going to create global styles in a styles directory in globe.css, and then we are going to import it in the Gatsby-browser.js. it is going to be placed on top of every page.
Yes. So what we need to do is in our application there always a specific style CSS which will apply in whole application. All the pages should follow the consistent background or the theme or the button color. So those styles needs to be at the global level. So for that, what Gatsby provide us is, what we can do is we can, in the source folder, we can create a folder named style. And here we can create a file. You can name it anything, but you can, so that it appears that it's a global CSS, you can name it a global CSS. And here what we can do is, let me just, I'm adding the color for the body at this level. There should be some better color than what I do. Okay, so let's go for the Azure. So I have created a folder named style. I have created a global.css. Now, instead of applying CSS on a particular page individually, what we can do is Gatsby provide us a facility where for the all kind of global level things for the client, the browser level, at the browser level, you can create a file named Gatsby browser. Yeah, at the root level. So you need to create at the root level, like it is Gatsby config. So we have Gatsby browser.js, and inside that we'll import CSS. So now I guess this is done. We'll go to the page. I guess we need to rebuild it.
Yes, because the file has appeared now.
Yes. So we need to run the develop server again because of the.
You have to restart the developer server.
Yes. So in browser.js, there are other options we'll learn later on, that you can have few other functions in your browser.js where you can, when your application is, the loading of your application is done, so you want to do something, any page gets loaded or any page gets changed or updated, so you can have functions over here, and those functions will work whenever your page updated, or your application loaded for the very first time. So you have all those functions over here.
Shan, your computer is very slow. I think it is short of RAM.
No, it's RAM. I have 16 GB of RAM. Basically, with the live streaming and the building process, it gets too much slow. Okay, so localhost 8000. Yeah, I have a color, but I guess you will not be able to realize that color. So let me add a color which is much visual. I'm avoiding red, green, blue. Okay, so you can see we have not added the CSS at particular page. So in about page we have that CSS, in home page we have that CSS. What we have just did is we have created a global CSS in a style folder, and we have created Gatsby browser.js, and we have mentioned the import the global CSS. That CSS, whatever CSS available in that global.css will be applied on all the pages inside our application. So that's how you will have a global CSS without specifically adding on a particular page. So whenever you have a new page, you will have that CSS directly applied on that particular page.
Now let's go back to the repository and do one last step, and we are done for today.
Okay.
Let's have a component scoped CSS.
Okay. So for the component scope browser, we will not be using the global CSS. What we need to understand is component specific CSS and what it is and why we need it. So what you need to understand is whenever we are working in a larger application, there are chances that we have a multiple page, and then in these multiple page there is CSS that will be specific to each particular page. We have a global CSS which is global theme, global color of a button, but we have some styles which will be specific to a particular page. Now, what can happen or can cause a problem to you is that you are trying to create a CSS and you name a class of a CSS which might be also be being used in another page. So you created a my component, a class in CSS by the name my component, and you have a two pages, they both are using a class name my component. So what will happen is, because CSS being merged and it will applied at the top level of your application, so there is a chance that your code or your pages or your website gets CSS or your component gets CSS, two CSS of the same name, my component. So component dev has a my CSS, my component CSS coming from the two CSS files. So it will cause a problem because browser will decide which CSS needs to be applied, and that will be the one which appears in the last. So your component, your page can have a problem which you will not be able to easily realize why this CSS is being appeared and why your CSS is not correct at a particular moment. So that's why what you need to do is you need to create a component scope or page scope CSS. What it does is when you create a CSS in that style, it gives a prefix to all your classes. So that's why your CSS will never get combined or mixed with any other CSS. As we have seen, we have created in this example, we have created a description.txx file and description.module.css. So it identifies, it's mentioned to the Gatsby that this is a module specific CSS and it should be handled that particular way. So what we'll do is I'm going to create, we have a about.css, and I'm going to create a CSS specific to the about page. So in pages, about.module.css. Inside there, I'll be creating a class. Let's say what we have inside it. We have a div. My title. We can use anything, but at this moment, my title, and we'll be using the background color. It will be something nice, but let's say Nice is still nice is still Rag Khaki. Okay, so my title, and then what I need to do is I need to import that CSS. Import styles. Okay, so okay, declare but never use. So what I'll do is I'll provide the CSS over here, class name, styles. Now the benefit is we have created a CSS name my title, class name my title. So it will available to us as style dot my title.
I think styles. S, you have missed S.
Styles. Oh, cannot find module. CSS cannot find module. We have now do we have output here? Okay, so at this moment it's saying module not found, but the maybe it's because of the TypeScript or something at this moment, but we have the output and you can see it has a second color. So it's not something which is which you can say that what's the new in it, but what you can see is the name of a class over here, about dash module dash dash title dash some random word. So it created the component specific CSS, so that if you have a my title CSS and you have another class name my title for any other page, let's say we have a my title for the index page as well, so the CSS will be index module dash dash title. So it will two different CSS, so it will not collide, two CSS will not conflict with each other, so that your component or your page get confused at which title I need to apply over here. So that's how you will create a component specific CSS. There is nothing special, just you need to have module.css at the end as a postfix of your CSS file, about.module.css, so Gatsby can understand that I need to generate component specific classes for that component. So as you can see, we have a my title module.css, and how we have used it, import style from about.module.css, and then all those CSS classes we have inside style property. So style dot my title we have mentioned over there, and what Gatsby did is Gatsby generate the component specific or module specific classes for that classes name for that particular component, as we have seen over here. So that's the special thing in it, component specific. You have a separate class for each component, so it will be specific to that particular name. It will not conflict with any other CSS class.
Very nice work, Zeeshan. Let's get back to the repository. Just sum it up. We have so far done the first 6 steps, from step 0 to step 5.
Yes.
From the next class, we will start doing step 6.
Yes.
So therefore, could you just summarize Gatsby? We have learned the basics of Gatsby. They can start developing in Gatsby, the students.
Okay, so you need to understand that what we are doing. Basically, we need to have a efficient, scalable application. That's why we are going towards the Gatsby or the CDN or static page application, static generation, static site generation. So what Gatsby does is it works on React. So Gatsby use React. So we have created the component, all the process, everything is similar to the React, or it's actually is React inside it. But what Gatsby does is Gatsby have provided us a workflow, a features, a components, and many other things which Gatsby provides so that you can create an application with static site generation with lot of dynamic content. There will be many other features which we'll be learning in next few classes. So when you need to set up, first you need to install Gatsby CLI at a global level. Then to create a new project, if you go in a terminal and write Gatsby space new space name, as we have done with the create React app, and the name of a npx create React app and the name of the folder, it generates a template for us. Same is done by the Gatsby. You write a Gatsby space new space folder name. It will generate a boilerplate code, but that boilerplate code have a few files which we still at this moment will not get the grasp of them. So that's why what Gatsby does is Gatsby has also provided us a two different setup startup boilerplate. One is a we have Sazia has mentioned over here. Um, Gatsby starter minimal. It has nothing but just the configuration files. And another one is Gatsby Hello World starter. We have two. So what you can do is Gatsby new folder name, whatever you want to name it, and the URL from which boilerplate you want to create your project. So it will create a new project for you, but it will use the basic structure from this URL. So that's how you can create a basic structure. Otherwise, you have to create all the files by yourself, and you have to done all the installation. And so Gatsby will create that project. And then what we have done is we have created the component. We get to know that whenever you want to create a separate pages, you should have a pages folder. Inside that, whatever component, React component you will create, that component will be treated as a separate page. And then if you want to create a component, not a page, a component that will be used in multiple pages, so you will create a folder of component and you will add component inside that pages. Then if you want to have a layout of your application and you need to use as a structure of your page, and then all the components should stay inside that. So we have learned the layout component, we have learned the how we can use the children property so that all the component inside that particular tag should be appear wherever we want to display it. Then we did the global style CSS. We created the Gatsby-browser file. We have imported the CSS, and you do not need to use that global CSS anywhere into your page. It will be available all your pages, and you can use that CSS directly. Then the component scope CSS. So you need to understand that your multiple page can have a same CSS class name, and that will be conflict. And that's a big issue with CSS, because all the CSS will appear at the same place, and it will get conflicted with the CSS. And maybe you were expecting a red color, and it will be appear a green. Why? Because some other CSS file has same class name and different color. So you need to create a component specific CSS. For that, you need to create a file with the name about module.css, whatever the name it is, and then module.css, and then we'll import it. So Gatsby will generate component specific classes for that CSS and will apply over there. So you will not have any conflict with the name of CSS classes.
Zeeshan, at this stage, I'll ask you a question.
Yes.
How do we generate a page-specific CSS? This is component. Is the same method?
Yeah, I have done in the page. It was in the page. So I did for the page.
But if you applied it to the component, it will also apply.
It will work as the same.
In Gatsby, the page is called the component, and the actual component is called the sum component. So therefore, okay, it will apply the same question. You are saying the same method will apply on the components and subcomponents.
Yes, it will be the same for the component subcomponent.
It means it will apply on the pages as well as the components.
Yes.
Yes. Anything else to add?
I guess we at this moment we are done enough.
Just show us the list again of the.
Yes.
We have completed up to step 5. That is from
Yeah.
0 to 5. We have done about 6 steps, and in the next class we will start working on step number 6. Thank you
Yes.
so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye bye. See you guys around.
Okay. Bye.